name's Cassie, and most of you guys know me and know that. I grew up in a Christian home from the age of birth. I went to church. I knew who Jesus was. I knew that the basics was you had to accept Jesus, and kind of just, you know, everyone had to make that decision for themselves. At 6 years old, I went to church, and the pastor was talking about Jesus, this Jesus I'd heard about my whole life. I kind of had questions about it. I was 6. I didn't understand what the pastor was talking about. I went home, and my dad was there, and I said, "Hey, Dad, what's this whole thing, this Jesus thing? What's the pastor talking about? He talked about heaven and hell and Jesus," and I was like, "What's that mean?" I knew it was interesting, and I knew I wanted to know more about it. And my dad explained it to me, and he said that you had to ask Jesus into your heart, and he would take away your sins, because Jesus died for us on the cross 2,000 years ago. And I said, "Oh, that's cool," and I accepted Jesus into my heart. And now I'm going to skip ahead about, I'll say, 5 years. From then, I'm about 11, and I get into school. And I'd accepted Jesus into my heart at 6, but as you all know, life hits. You get to school, and this chapter of my life that I'm going to talk about next, I kind of like to call self-worth, quote-unquote. I was the kind of person that in school, grades were important to me. Grades were what I could count on. If I could get an A in a class, that was something I could look at and be like, if everything else in the whole world fell apart, I would have all A's, and that made me worth something. I know some of you are like, all A's, what, why do you even care? But I'm sure everyone in this room can think of something that they're like, if everything else falls apart, I have sports. If everything else falls apart, I have music. If everything else falls apart, I have that one thing. And as long as I have that one thing, I'm gold. Well, I had all A's, and I was on cloud 9. Whenever anything happened, I knew I had all A's. And junior year hit, and I got a B, and I flipped out. Because what do? If you, all your life, you got every free throw, and then you missed one. What are you good for? Where's your worth at? And I got a B, and that was my missing my free throw. And so I didn't know what to do. And so I had to turn to something else to find my worth in. And at this point, I turned to what was not a good choice. I turned to guys. And I thought that if I could get this guy, I had this huge crush on this guy at the time. I thought if I could get this guy to like me, I would have my worth back. I would be worth something again. And it didn't happen. It didn't work out. We didn't. And so I was like, okay, grades let me down. Guys let me down. Now where am I at? Where's my worth at? And so I had to look for something else to find my worth in. And at this point, I was probably at my lowest point in my life. I was utterly depressed. Thoughts of suicide were just always on my mind. I didn't know what to do. And so I turned to the thought that my image, how I looked, could give me worth. And so my whole life, I was really overweight. All the guys at school thought it was just the most funny thing to make fun of me for. And so I thought, okay, if my image is going to give me my worth, I need to lose this weight. And so I turned to absolutely every crazy crash diet you could think of. I would just, sometimes it ended up, I wouldn't eat for days on end. I thought that I needed to get that weight off. And eventually I did. I lost like 70 pounds, and I was like, hey, now I have my worth, like, you know. And the guys that had made fun of me for my weight, they stopped making fun of me for my weight. But you know what? They found something else to make fun of me for. And so here I was. Grades had let me down, guys had let me down, and the way I looked, it wasn't giving me worth, because the guys were still finding something to make fun of me for. And I, honestly, was at my lowest point then, and I didn't know what to do. And that thing in the back of my mind, that Jesus that I accepted at age 6, he was there the whole time. And he was saying, hey, I give you worth. Grades don't give you worth. Guys don't give you worth. The way you look doesn't give you worth. I give you worth. And so I had to turn back to the Jesus that died for me 2,000 years ago that I accepted at age 6. And I had to turn to him and realize that he was what gave me worth, not any of those other things that I depended on.